Hello, this is Alan Wheeler on my channel where I usually talk about spirituality and tarot. Today's topic um, is the spiritual aspects of the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which is a Netflix show that's had, I believe, 3 seasons now. So, just a brief introduction. Um, it's a show similar as uh, in my assessment, it's similar to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Um, in this case, it's about a teenage half witch, and um, I've only watched the first 2 episodes and then done some research. And I wanted to make this video about some of the spiritual issues that I see raised, which I will be watching with interest throughout the series. So first, let me say something about the tone. Um, it's done in a camp atmosphere. By that I mean camp similar to the 1960s Batman. Um, this also comes from a comic book. It's much of it is ironic and tongue-in-cheek and all in fun. So the show is obviously not meant as a political manifesto or a theological treatise or something, but I simply think it raises some issues, maybe influences popular culture a little bit, and gives some food for thought. So I don't want to take it too seriously. The first thing to think about for me is the universe of the show. So just as Buffy the Vampire Slayer had what they call the Buffy universe, so the show is also going to have the reality as depicted by this environment, by this show. And one way of looking at the um, the universe is how it's set up um, as regards morality, good and evil. Is it like an old fairy tale? Something like Star Wars, where you have the dark side of the Force and the light side fighting, or something more complex. And in the game Dungeons and Dragons, there's kind of a complex setup for what they called the character's alignment. So you could have a character who was chaotic evil, and the chaotic side meant that they followed no rules um, and organizational aspects of society, but were free spirits. And evil meant that they either did things in their own self-interest that caused harm to others, or they just existed for the purpose of causing harm. And at the same time, some folks could be lawful evil. And so they could be lawful, which meant they followed certain rules and laws and organization, um, but they were self-interested or caused harm for other reasons. Likewise, you could have characters that were chaotic good. They were free spirits, they didn't follow rules, but they were essentially good-natured um, and beneficial to those around them, something like Han Solo in Star Wars. And you could have people who were neutral or um, uh, lawful good. And so there is some complexity beyond just simply all these characters are good and all these characters are evil. And so this is something of the complexity I see emerging in this show. This is why I bring it up. And so, although on the surface, Sabrina, the main character, is having to choose between the path of light versus the dark in the joining the Church of Night at her dark baptism. She has this choice whether she's going to sign the Book of the Beast and join the Church of Night. So on the surface, we see this light versus dark, but digging a little deeper, there's some complexity there in which when she talks to the high priest, the he makes the claim that free will is the bedrock of the church she's joining, and yet she comes to find out that by signing the Book of the Beast, it means giving over her power, as though joining the dark side in Star Wars. And by the end of the second episode, we see one of the characters saying, "Thy will be done," just as you might hear in a church, and then giving total submission and kissing the cloven hoof of the Dark Lord. So it seems they're claiming free will, but then Sabrina discovers there's hypocrisy there. So there seem to be there's not the perfect equation of the path of light is good, the mortals are all good, and the witches are all evil, but there seems to be good and evil mortals and good and evil among the witches. So the idea of free will versus being a sheep is very important in real Luciferian thought. And the sect in the show, it seems like a satanic sect with a lot of subservience and hierarchy and rank and things like that. So in these first two episodes, Sabrina has this tension between living the mortal life and the joining the Church of Night. But by the end of the episode, she runs. She refuses to sign the Book of the Beast, and she says she chooses neither path or both. And the quote is, she says, "I'm a half witch and I'm of two covens." So she chooses a third way rather than the simple choice of two. And the backstory of her parents also emerges that they were a mixed couple, and maybe their deaths were not accidental as they were thought. So I'm sure more intrigue will come as the show develops. So these are some of the more spiritual issues that seem to be rising up here. Now it seems there's different dualities that emerge in different seasons. And I had to dig and do a little research, but in season 1 we already see there's this tension between the mortal life and the witch life. And I expect that will be developed. Reading online, I see that in season 2, there's a further complexity or a further layer of witchcraft versus Satanism. So obviously they're going to expand and not cast all witchcraft into the mold of this little sect that's being shown on the show. And then in season 3, apparently, as a crew of carnies comes through town, we get the duality of the pagan, different pagan beliefs versus the mainstream religion. So I look forward to looking through all of these issues as they arise. Finally, diversity in the show is certainly a good feature, both spiritual diversity as well as ethnic and cultural diversity. And so some examples we have, as Sabrina's trying to explain her dark baptism to her mortal boyfriend, she compares that to a bar mitzvah or a quinceanero, a coming of age in other cultures. We also have women's issues addressed as Sabrina and her friends form a group to champion the women at her school, and they dub it the Women's Intersexual Cultural and Creative Association, the Women's Intersectional Cultural and Creative Association, WICCA, WICCA. So I assume that's a joke that comes from the comic books. We also get a lot of complexity, as in the old show True Blood that dealt with vampires, and there vampires would go mainstream and have all the issues of getting into politics, and they became an identity group, as any other might be. And so here we already see in these first 2 episodes witches do social justice. So they're fighting bullies at the school and the white patriarchy. And so we have that aspect. Also, one website online noted that witchcraft is depicted as dignified and a full-blown spiritual practice or religious practice, and not done in a mocking or surface kind of Halloween-y kind of way. This website said it's not accurate, but it is diverse without tokenism. So this was a positive review on Black Nerd Problems website. So I think my assessment is also positive. And again, the tone is light. It's entertainment. It comes from a comic book. And so it's not going to take a lot of weight and or seriousness, but I do think it's good food for thought and raises some good issues, and it doesn't seem to be overly insulting. I'll continue my research and see. I'm sure, as always online, people's mileage will vary. So this is my look at spiritual aspects of the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Please subscribe, like, comment, so that this can get out to other interested people to get that algorithm up. And as always, I hope you find connection with people in your life, with online community, and on your spiritual path, whatever that may be. Take care.